Failure rate by event for men: deadlift, less than 1%. Standing power throw. As you can see, this is less than 1%. Leg tuck, 2%. 2-mile run, 5%. You know what? We had quite a few guys come right to the edge, but a failure was pretty rare in my day. To have 5% failing, what's going in? What is the raw product being put into basic right now? Gamer kids, fat, pudgy little gamer kids with little fucking noodle arms.
Yeah,
you're right. I see them all the time. These kids, when we were kids, dude, we were outside all the time. We were always doing shit. High school was one big fight with classes in between.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For the most part. Failure rate event by women: deadlift, 6%. Standing power throw, 15%. You don't have the core and upper body strength. Hand release push-ups, 2%. Sprint drag carry, 12%. Yeah. Leg tucks, 22%. The grip strength on the bar, I bet, is what gets them, because women are usually good at sit-ups. They've got that lower core strength. Women do have that. Women do have equal lower core strength, and they can do sit-ups. 2-mile run, 22%. Yeah. And again, it's down to the product that's being put into basic, but also, I'm so tired of beating this dead horse, man. I'm so tired of beating this dead horse.
We have
Look,
to.
ladies, it's not personal. You're wired differently. You've got different amounts of meat and bone. We're built to crush things up. That's basically what guys are for. Crush things up, share some DNA material with you, and then go crush things up to bring you food.
Mm-hmm.
We're fairly simple organisms, but you can't compete with us in the physical strength department. It's extremely rare. You got to have one hell of a sissy guy and one hell of a beefy girl. And I have farm girl in my family. Like one of my cousins is 58 and still has a mullet. Like that kind of farm girl, and wears flannels and beat up work boots and shit.
Yeah.
And she will straight up knock you on your ass, but she's no match for her 3 brothers.
Yeah. and some's telling me if you screw with her, then you'll have to deal with the 3 brothers.
And the cousins too, because it's one of those families. You smack one of the girls around, and the next thing you know, you get like 14 of the cousins at the door going, "We'd like to talk to you."
Yeah, and here's another thing I found when I was doing my research for the male suicide thing, and I say it's between 60 and 70% of all the suicides I've researched had a divorce or contact with family court. And people are like, what do you mean between 60 and 70? The rural people, their suicide rate's lower because they have bigger families and they're closer to their families.
They rely on each other.
And the closer you get to the big cities, the less you have of that.
Yeah, because they're atomized.
Yeah.
Because they're atomized. It wasn't true when we were younger kids. Like 70s, you still had the families around in the cities.
Yeah.
You'd have like 5 or 6 families of the same clan living on a block or 2 in some cases. But that like disappeared right around the middle of the 80s. I remember it was like flicking a fucking light switch. All of a sudden that wasn't. Think about it.
I would say it. I started noticing it probably after I got out of high school in 86.
Yeah.
And by the time I was in the early, when I got off active duty and was going to college in the mid 90s, it was on its way to extinction.
It was gone. There was Oak Park had a lot of large families living in blocks in the neighborhoods.
Yes, they did.
And then all of a sudden, like by the early 90s, all of that shit was gone. It was very weird. So, because the women keep failing all the PT tests, the Army, of course, does what? Approves reduced physical fitness standards for women and older soldiers. Now, Pop and I were talking about this before the show. There was sort of a code where the older soldiers that had anywhere from like 18 to 24 years in service, and this is like the warrant officers, the sergeants major, some of the older officers like colonels and shit, when they came for their PT tests, there was sort of like a quiet code of don't give him too much shit.
Yeah.
But they would always, they would always fucking try. Yeah. They didn't lollygag. They didn't sandbag. They would always try. But if one of those push-ups wasn't quite all the way there, you weren't going to really worry about that, because the guy's already got 23 years of service and he's a CW5.
Yeah.
You cut him a little fucking slack. He's done his push-ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this shit, following a 3-year review, the Army has scrapped plans to use the same physical fitness test for all soldiers, choosing instead to have some reduced standards to allow women and older soldiers to pass. The decision follows a RAND-led study. RAND Corporation is a civilian corporation. They have no business in any of this. A study that found men were more easily passing the new, more difficult Army combat fitness test. We just discussed that, compared to women and older soldiers who were failing at noticeably higher rates. The 6-event test developed in 2019 was an expansion from 3 events, push-ups, sit-ups, and a run, that soldiers had done prior. This test is an essential part of maintaining the readiness of the Army as we transformed into the Army of 2030. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said in a statement announcing the changes, the revisions to the ACFT are based on data and analysis, including an independent assessment required by Congress, who also hasn't done a fucking single push-up in their entire fucking life.
Especially most of those guys never served in the military.
Most of them never served in anything but Congress. They go right from school, from college, to being a congressional aide. They might do a little hitch as an attorney somewhere, but then it's right into office and they never see anything but. They're useless. They're ticks. they're social fucking ticks. They serve no purpose in life.
Yeah, they're an ass tick. Yeah.
They are ass ticks. The revisions to the ACFT are based on data and analysis. We will continue to assess our implementation of the test to ensure it is fair and achieves our goal of strengthening the Army's fitness culture. You just ruined the Army's fitness culture, you dumb fuck. The Army first changed its fitness test to include deadlifts, power throws, push-ups, planks.
Closer to the mic.
My bad. Better?
Yes.
Okay. The Army first changed its fitness test to include deadlifts, power throws, push-ups, planks, a run, and a sprint drag carry event, as well as a leg tuck that was eventually eliminated. One of the things that vanished from the Army, and you'll be able to confirm this, I'm guessing, and it happened right around the time I went in, which was late 94. Units and basic training used to run soldiers through obstacle courses all the time. And then that kind of like vanished.
Yeah, we did the obstacle course at least once a week. They had a smaller one around the PT field.
Right.
Yep. And then they would, because I was on Fort Benning, we did it once or twice, once at the end of basic and once at the end of AIT. Yep. It is the obstacle course known as I think they called it the Dirty
Derby Queen.
Derby Queen. And then there's obstacles in that called the Dirty Name and fuck you in the butt. Because people like literally get legitimately hurt permanently on those fucking obstacles. And we did that. We did it twice, and I was like 17 years old.
And they were serious obstacles.
Yeah.
When we did the obstacle course at Jackson, and Jackson was considered one of it was nicknamed Relaxin' Jackson.
Yeah.
It's not infantry basic. It's not. It's the clerks and jerks, but the MI guys went through there too. We went through the obstacle course and like, can we do that again? And the drill starts like, no, only once per cycle. We're like, well, that fucking sucks.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I want to do that shit again.
We wanted to do it again. My point here being, the training used to be hard. The training used to be rigorous. You used to do obstacle courses all the time. And it was only when you got to units that, like any of the soft units, their PT was always good. But like 2ID in Korea, where all we had to do was PT. And, hey, let's run up a fucking mountain. Hey, that cliff looks fun. Let's set up a rappel course. You know, anything. You know, that was the culture. And when we were off duty in Korea, you were up by the DMZ. The only thing you had to do was drink and go to the gym.
And
we played. And we played a lot of horseshoes and poker too. But yeah, this doesn't even begin to make any sense to me that these people think that this is weird. This test is an essential part of maintaining the readiness of the Army as we transform into the Army of 2030. What the f is that? Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said in a statement announcing changes. I'm sorry, a female does not belong as the Army Secretary. She just doesn't. Sorry. You don't know what you're doing there. You don't know what the requirements are. The revisions to the ACFT are based on data and analysis, including an independent assessment required by Congress. We will continue to assess our implementation of the test to ensure that it is fair. You've just made it unfair. You've explicitly made it unfair. The Army first changed its fitness test to include deadlifts, power throws, push-ups, planks, runs, sprint dragging, and blah, blah, blah. Service leaders hope the newer test, the first such changes more than 40 years, would better replicate tasks needed for combat while reducing the risks of injuries. Guess what? The sprint, drag, carry,
That
absolutely. The power throw, yeah. Deadlifts, yes. That all applies. But the new fitness curriculum was quickly criticized after it became clear that women, older male soldiers, and National Guard and Reserve troops had difficult. Nasty Guard and Reserve always has trouble passing the PT test. They're a hot fucking mess. 44% of the women failed the test. What's that?
The 425. That they didn't play that game.
Okay, most. Okay, yeah. Most of the. I was dealing with civil affairs units out of Hawaii.
Yeah.
We referred to them, their officers, as the surfing colonels.
Yes. Yeah. I did, 12 years in K-Poc, and they suck.
Yeah. And the older soldiers, we've been over that already. They've done their time. If I've got a 25-year sergeant major in my line, I'm not going to bust his nuts over a fucking push-up. That's not happening.
Like, for instance, there was a couple older NCOs that I had when I was in civil affairs. They were former combat arms, had a boatload of experience. Now, in civil affairs, you got to fill out paperwork, you got to meet and greet and do stuff like that. All right. But I can take a shooter and teach them how to fill out fucking paperwork. A hell of a lot easier. I could take a paperwork jockey and train him how to shoot. So when that old guy shows up, and he's going to stumble here and there, maybe he comes across from the 2-mile run and he's 15 seconds over time. He's a go.
Yeah.
Because I need that expertise. There is
exactly
no substitute for that.
Yep.
All right. I need that age and I need that fucking treachery if I want to win the battles and then the war.
The guy is still there at 20 years. He's already proven he can do the push-ups and the sit-ups and the 2-mile run.
Countless times.
I'm satisfied. He's already shown that he can do these things.
Uh-huh.
Now I need exactly what you're talking about. I need the old age and treachery. I need these guys who know how to get stuff done, who know how to walk over to some other unit, walk past the commander's office and the supply sergeant to the freaking specialist who's stocking a cabinet somewhere and go, "Hey, I need a couple of these. Can you hook me up?" And that's really how it works.
Yeah,
that's really how it works.
And when I was a training sergeant, I was pretty lax on a lot of shit. Like, by the regs, if you fail a PT test, you can't give them another one for a certain amount of time. I had for instance, I had this one female soldier. She wanted to get promoted, and she got injured, and then she came back, but she failed like 2 PT tests in a row. She was close, So I literally okay, this is how it's going to work. You're going to come here Monday through Friday. All right. And then you can stay here over the weekend, sleep on a cot, and then you're going to be here the next Monday through Friday. And you're going to take a PT test every third fucking day until we get you to pass.
Yep.
And guess what? Yeah, she made it.
Yeah.
And she never failed another PT test after that.
Once you learn how to, and you can learn how to take the PT test, once you learn how to do it correctly, you can condition your brain and do all of that stuff. and it's really not all that hard. I had guys that would fail a PT test, and usually the commander would give them to one of the guys. We had a squad called the Knucklehead Squad that everybody was like 290 and above.
Yeah.
And the commander would just give the PT failures to one of us, and we'd get them and just smoke the dog shit out of them, but we didn't do it to break them.
Yeah.
We trained them the same way that we got to our 290. And I had this one guy, I don't even remember his name anymore. He's this skinny little, like 128-pound soaking wet dude. And he kept failing the run. So I just took him on freaking hill runs and hill runs and hill runs. And here's a flak vest. Put this on, it'll be fine. And he hated the fuck out of me. And then a week and a half later, he took the PT test and passed it. And when he crossed the finish line at, I think it was at 14:10, and all he needed was a freaking 15. He was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
He looked at me with like astonishment on his face, and I'm like, "What? You're the one who did it.
I didn't do it. You did it. I'm just the guy who made
it. The whole time he talked about getting out, and years later, I found out that he became a freaking warrant officer. He was a CW2 and had stayed in. So, and gone to Pathfinder school.
Here's another war story. I know we don't want to do a lot of war stories, but this one's a pretty good one. I was in civil affairs at the 414 in Southfield, Michigan, and I get a call from a guy that I went to Iraq with in 2004. And he's like, I went to Iraq, he had a buddy of his who was stuck in a motor pool, and all he wanted to do was deploy, just to go overseas. So later on in his life, he could tell his kids, yes, I deployed with the Army while it was involved in war. Because that's a pride thing. So his NCOIC at this motor pool, who I went to Iraq with in 2004, calls me on the QT and goes, "Hey, man, you got to do me a favor. We got to get this guy in your unit. He's got to fucking deploy." I'm like, okay, bring him in. I give him a PT test. He fails. And he's all like butthurt about it. I'm like, okay, it's Monday. We'll do it again on Friday. And I gave him the same deal. I let him train and do other thing. On Friday, we did it again. He passed the push-ups. He passed the sit-ups. But when he did the 2-mile run, I was running behind him. And he was keeping pace until he got to the 1-mile mark. And then you could just see him just become all defeated. And I'm literally running behind him, hitting him in the back of the neck. Run, motherfucker! And he made it. And I got him on the roster, and I got his ass over to Iraq. He wound up getting a CAB, Combat Action Badge, and he was a go. He was a go, and that was very satisfying for me.
I had a guy like that named Scuzzle, and it was pretty much the same thing. Me running behind him, just run, you piece of shit.
A lot of times you don't have to hit him. You just run. You just call cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Run, motherfucker, run some more.
Yeah, exactly. I did have one female from the headquarters unit who failed her run, and she was Private Griffiths. And she was just a good kid. She was a nice kid. She just was failing the fucking run. And when I took her out for the test, you can't touch them. You can't help them, any of that. You can run behind them and encourage them. I was just like, come on, you got this. A little bit more. Give me a little bit more. Okay, we're on a straightaway. I want you to push it out a little bit. Okay, now take a breath. Let's finish this curve a little slower and then hit the other straightaway. And you can just, I niced her in because that's what worked.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the meat caser box.